Welcome back to my garden. Now, it has been about a week since my last tour and update to show you how much everything has grown. And our dry spell has broke. For the past almost week, it has been raining on and off nonstop. And when it rains, it pushes nitrogen down from the air, which gives your plants a boost as they take that nitrogen in through their leaves, and they go through a noticeable growth spurt. So, I'm at the entrance to my garden showing you how tall my peppers have gotten, how lush they've filled in. Even the ones that were stunted have started to grow, with the exception of one. And don't worry, I will pull you in closer as we go along. This is my herb garden. I have oregano, dill, parsley, I have some marigolds growing, sweet basil, dwarf basil, also known as Greek basil, and Thai basil. I have a geranium, chives, and cilantro. I also have peppermint and apple mint. Now I cut those down in order to make some iced tea for my kids. So now they're putting out new growth, and they're a little smaller than the rest of them. But what I did notice, as you can see on the Greek basil and the Thai basil, they started to go to seed. Now, in order to continue with the leafy growth, which is what I want, I went and I snipped most of the flower heads off of them. I am letting a couple go to seed. However, I want it to bush out some more. So, I took the bolting to a minimum. This way I get more leaves and I get more basil as the season goes on, because it is only the beginning of July. This is my sweetie cherry tomato plant, and she's starting to put out flower trestles. She's also got plenty of suckers growing, and as they get big enough to be tied, I will tie them. However, the largest one actually secured itself by putting a leaf out right at the intersection. And I do have some marigolds growing behind it. My Mule Team tomato was one of the tomatoes I initially found ant farming aphids on. However, unlike my Black Russian Crim tomato, I was able to save it. And it was stunted for a while, and thanks to the rain that we had, it has finally started to grow. So hopefully, I will be able to harvest tomatoes from this, because I'm very curious as to how it tastes. Next to my Mule Team I have my Brandywine red tomato. Now this has been a very interesting tomato for me because the leaf structure has not been unlike any tomato plant I have ever seen. And now that it is starting to flower, the flowers on it are much larger than any other tomato I've seen. It is just baffling me and surprising me every single day. Massive, massive flowers on it. The next planter is one of my lettuces. Now it does look as though I have some grass in here, so I apologize for that. It's very difficult to weed because of how crowded it is. Now I'm not sure if this is Buttercrunch or romaine lettuce. However, this has surprised me because it hasn't started to bolt yet. And as densely packed as it is, it's starting to do what looks like going to head. This is my quick harvest crop pot from one of my previous videos. When I lost my Black Russian Crim, Anastasia planted a whole bunch of quick crops in here. And due to the drought, we only had 2 beans and 2 lettuce come up. So what I did during the rain was I planted a whole bunch of lettuce seeds along the perimeter. And they're finally starting to take root. So as long as I keep the soil moist, we will be good. As you can see, there's something new here. I put a trellis up. These are red potatoes, and inside there is a spring mix of lettuce growing. And they haven't been shaded out. However, they are stunted compared to the rest of the lettuce. I'm going to bring you in to the other side so you can get a better view. This is the other side of the potato. And as you can see, the lettuce is growing quite nicely. Just very tiny, so it's tender, but it hasn't begun to bolt and it hasn't died off. Although, I do believe I'm getting potato flowers. In the next planter, I have my Japanese long cucumbers. And all I do, I put some string coming down from the trellis to help train them to grow up the trellis. And all I do is I come in when I'm here and I just wrap the tendrils around the one I want it to grow up to train it to go up the trellis. In the next planter, I have the green beans. And as you can see, they're in full bloom. So in my next video, I will show you how to pollinate your green bean plants. However, that's going to be a very quick video because it's very simple. Hidden behind my massive marigold plant and garlic, I have my Tokiwa cucumbers. Again, I did the same thing as the Japanese long to help train them to go up the trellis. In the pot next to it are my peas. And if you look very carefully, inside my leaf clusters, I'm starting to get little white petals. Now I'm going to lean this down into the sunlight to show you I am finally starting to get pea flowers. And they're the reason the trellis went up as soon as it did, because they outgrew their planter and they were flopping all over the place. So now I barely had to train them, but I had some over here that were growing forward. I needed to train to go up. These are my garden sweet cucumbers. And as tiny as they are, they're starting to put out flowers, both female and male flowers. So hopefully they continue to grow as they flower. We are now at Anastasia's section of the garden. She has... Let me come over here to show you. She has 2 separate yellow peach tomato plants that have been flowering since they were brought into the garden. And some of them even have fruits already growing on them, all varying sizes. And when you look down from her tomato plants, she's got a beautiful flower assortment with different kinds of flowers growing in it. So once what I put in here to root takes root, it's going to be amazing. She's going to have 3 different colored flowers, as well as solid pink flowers. And hopefully I'm able to get seeds from them so that next year we can grow the same thing. Because I attribute my pollinators coming in to these guys, and a little surprise I'll show you at the end. Right next to her flowers are my coleuses, which brings us back into my part of the garden. I've got 2 different colored coleuses doing wonderfully. Now when they flower, their flower is not that spectacular. You can either leave it so the butterflies and pollinators have it, or you could snip it off so your coleus will continue to grow. Over here, I have 3 separate yellow peach tomato plants myself. And I staggered them. They're not planted in the center of the planter because of the way that they're facing. They're staggered so that they each get some light. And in the pot at the end of the last yellow peach tomato, I have 2 little pepper plants, which I believe are Tabasco peppers, growing. And yes, I'm going to pollinate them. I've had more flowers come out on this pepper plant than any of my other pepper plants. However, they have all simply dropped their flower after pollination, although this one was eaten by something. In here, I have my 2 big Thai chili peppers and a yellow bell pepper. Now, the big Thais I grew from seed, and you can see they're much darker than the yellow bell pepper, which I planted only 2 weeks ago. However, due to transplant shock, the lower leaves are turning yellow and falling off, whereas the new leaves are coming out nice, dark, and green. These are 3 more of the yellow bell peppers. However, this one is starting to produce flowers. The next pot is a Cubanelle pepper. As beautiful as it is, I didn't think it was going to grow until the rain came because it as well was stunted. That is one of my favorite tomatoes. Yeah. That is one of my favorite peppers as far as flavor goes. The next pot, I have, yes, 4 Boxcar Willie tomato plants. This one is actually starting to produce a flower trestle. I had to step back to show you the full glory of the chocolate cherry tomato, which is already producing flowers, nice yellow, ready to be pollinated, and the Rapunzel cherry tomato as well. Again, the chocolate cherry tomato is my largest tomato plant so far of the season, and this is my 5th Boxcar Willie tomato. This one is in a planter all by itself. However, I transplanted it from the center of the 4 in the other pot to give it a better chance. And it was average sized compared to all the other ones. It was not the best sized one. And it has spread out and bushed out and enjoyed being by itself so much that it started putting out suckers to really take over the planter. I have a green bell pepper and 3 Carnival peppers, which are also bell peppers that are starting to put out flowers. Again, you can see how darker, more lush green the ones I grew from seed are compared to the one that I got pre-grown. However, there is a little bit of leafedema from excess water on the newer leaves, but the plant will outgrow that. Again, this is what I was talking about with the transplant shock. Although there's signs of new growth coming out the side on this one. It's far behind the rest of the peppers that I planted. Moving over, I have some more peppers. In fact, all I have left is peppers. Let me move you in closer to get a better look. These are 2 of the Carnival peppers that I planted, and this is a green bell that I transplanted in with transplant shock. However, just like the ones I'm growing, there is some leafedema going on at the top from the excess amount of moisture. In the next planter, I have 2 habanero peppers and the peppuccini that I grew from seed. Now the habaneros didn't have as much of a transplant shock as the rest of the plants did. However, it wasn't ready to put out its flowers just yet, so I'm waiting on them to finally open. And as far as plants that I grew from seed, this peppuccini is about to put out its first flower. That would be the first pepper flower from a plant that I grew from seed. Moving back 2 planters, I'm going to zoom you in right to show you my black Hungarian pepper. As I said, most of my peppers are stunted, and this is the only one that hasn't gotten its roots right. And showing you with my finger, this is how tiny it is. Now moving right back along, I will meet you down at the last planter on this bench. This is one of my peppuccini plants that has just started to growing again after its little stunted behavior in the beginning of the season. It's doing far less better in a pot by itself than its counterpart in the pot right next to it with the habaneros. Hidden inside this planter with the peppers I showed you in my last video that are about to drop their flowers before they even open is my jalapeno, which for the longest time was a single solitary seed leaf. However, again, with the rain, it has just began to start growing. Talk about flower drop. This one's stuck. There we go. Now for my last two planters, there's really not much that I grew myself. It's a bell pepper that I transplanted in here because my mystery pepper died. Anastasia grew this beautiful lemon tree. And this is the Tabasco pepper that I planted in here. And this planter was the focus at the beginning of my last video when I was explaining with Anastasia how to pollinate pepper plants. These 4 peppers and this pepper here, which is a green bell pepper, were transplanted, and I did not grow them from seed. However, this is the lone carnival pepper left in this planter. And like the Hungarian pepper plant, it's not doing much to grow. And as promised, my special bonus feature, I'm going to take you over to my floral bed, Anna's garden, and show you the surprise above it. As you can see, my flower bed has not produced any flowers yet. I planted a sweet pea in the back, and my sunflowers are finally starting to grow back after they were eaten by the woodchuck. I've got a 2-headed sunflower and a 2-headed sunflower, and these are mammoth grays. They're supposed to be one single stalk with one single flower on the top. But he left some leaves, so they're growing back. My hollyhock is starting to grow. But the big surprise is up top. My children were each gifted a multi-headed sunflower. And I was gifted 4 different, beautiful colored miniature roses, which need to be watered. And for my birthday back in March, my sister gave me this beautiful echinacea that I started to bring outside in hopes that the flower bud will finally open. And I also have another lemon tree that Anastasia grew from seed. These I bring in each and every night, and I only bring them out when the weather is nice. So if the wind picks up, they go inside. Thank you all for tuning in, and remember, you need to help your pollinators. You need something to draw them in and keep them there. And what they like most is flowers. So I'll see you all next time.
Bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.